What's up, guys? Welcome back to Deck Tech for Decks. I'm your host, Caleb. If you want to support me, you can now support me on Patreon. If you want some say in what deck techs I do, or you need help building a deck, it's definitely a solid option. You can also support me by using the TCGplayer link in the description down below, or as always, just liking, commenting, subscribing will do the trick. Now, let's get into today's deck tech with Isu the Abominable. And honestly, this guy's just a placeholder in the command zone if we have nothing to do. I know that sounds bad, but he does some good stuff like getting the lands off the top of our library. 90% of the lands in the deck are snow lands, so he will make it to where we can constantly, keep them off the top of our library. That way we're always drawing in the gas. And then why I say he's a placeholder is because this deck's real goal is to get Marit Lage onto the battlefield. We want to abuse the power and toughness of a 2020 any way we can. So we put a ton of cards in the deck to make sure we can always tutor for that Thespian stage and then the Dark Depths. That way we can pull off the combo, and for 2 mana we get a 20/20. The rest of the deck just wants to do stuff like cast Rishkar's Expertise or Last March of the Ints to draw a lot of cards. We also do have some other ways to draw our entire library, so we're running that Eldrazi boy just to make sure we don't deck ourselves out. The other thing we do run in the deck is a lot of creatures that benefit from us drawing cards, such as Chasm Skulker. This guy's going to be pretty good. When we're drawing 20 cards, we're just going to buff this guy up. We sacrifice him, and we're going to take out that blue player. Geralf is also going to be pretty good in the deck because sacrificing Marit Lage for 22/2s is also going to be pretty solid, especially when there is ways to get that Thespian stage back out of the graveyard onto the battlefield and keep making those 20/20s. So if that sounds like a deck tech you'd like to get into, let's get into it. The first thing we need to do in this deck is get our Marit Lage onto the battlefield. Elvish Reclaimer is going to be amazing at that. We can go ahead and sacrifice 1 land 1 turn, get ourselves that Thespian stage, and then get ourselves that Marit Lage right onto the battlefield and instantly make a 20/20. Expedition Map and Crop Rotation. Now, both of these can only net us one piece of the combo, but hey, if we get enough of those in the deck, it becomes pretty consistent. Titania's Command. This one's pretty consistent at getting both of them, right? We can get those 2 lands onto the battlefield tapped, and then we get to choose one of these other pretty cool things. Exiling a graveyard is probably the other best option, but I could see a scenario where we do put those 2 +1/+1 counters on our board. Scape Shift, super solid. We just sack our lands and then go and fetch whatever lands we want. Notably, Thespian Stage and Dark Depths will definitely be among the lands we choose. Nylea's Intervention has an insane ceiling in the deck. This can either grab us our Dark Depths Thespian Stage combo with just 4 mana, or late game when we're tapping creatures for 20 mana because we have a 20 power creature, we can just search our library for 18 lands because why not? Root Path Purifier. This is going to turn our Kodama Reaches, our Cultivates into ways to tutor up our Thespian Stage and Dark Depths combo. We also use Conduit of Worlds. We have ways to sacrifice our Marit Lage token for value, and we could also just lose our Marit Lage token if someone exiles it. So having Conduit of Worlds in the deck just to bring back our Thespian Stage in case we need it is going to be super solid. Moving on, let's talk about how we're going to abuse our Marit Lage token. Return of the Wildspeaker and Soul's Majesty are just going to straight up draw us 20 cards. That's going to be pretty solid. Hunter's Insight and Hunter's Prowess are a little different. We have to make sure we connect. Luckily, Marit Lage not only has flying, but it also has indestructible, so it's going to be pretty hard for them to stop us from drawing 20 cards with these. We also run Rishkar's Expertise and Last March of the Ints. Last March of the Ints is just broken and wins games, and then Rishkar's Expertise is pretty good as well, letting you cast something for free after you draw a ton of cards. Mark of Sakiko, Tanukai, Transplanter, and Savala Heart of the Wilds. These cards are just going to allow us to add 20 mana to our mana pool. We also run cards like Toothy Imaginary Friend and Chasm Skulker. So now whenever we draw a ton of cards, those are going to get massive. And then whenever they die, we get benefits. So even if our opponents remove them, we still get some value. Jolrael is also an amazing card. It's going to give us card advantage, and you could just be slapping someone with a 20/20 land. I also crammed in the Greater Good and Ominous Seas combo. Now we have 8/8s, and we can sacrifice those 8/8s to instantly draw 8 cards to make another 8/8, and that will essentially let you draw your deck. Now, as long as we have something else to benefit off of that, which we will since we have our entire deck in our hand, we can just win the game from there. Kozilek Butcher of Truth also makes an appearance just to, shuffle our graveyard back into our library if we do get in trouble with drawing too many cards. Now let's talk about the core of the deck. We have Sensei's Divining Top, Scroll Rack, and Sylvan Library. This is basically to set up the top of our library, making sure there's always a snowland on top, that way we can effectively draw a card with these. I mean, Sylvan Library is just busted in general, but the other two are pretty solid just to make sure your lands are on top, that way we are getting some value off of our commander. Felidar Retreat is also super solid in the deck. We can not only buff up our creatures with this, making it to where our Power Matters cards are more impactful because we won't have Marit Lage all the time, so it will be pretty good for that. Scepter of Celebration is pretty solid. It just creates you an instant board state. Throw this on your Marit Lage and boom, you get 22 1/1s. You can't say no to that. Green Sun Zenith, this is mostly in the deck just so you can grab that Elvish Reclaimer early game, but it is super solid just to grab anything else that you need. Maybe if you have a lot of cards in hand and you need to benefit having a lot of cards in hand, you can grab something like that Jolriel. Turns out tutors are pretty flexible. Who knew, right? Sakashima of 1,000 Faces. I really like this in the deck because boom, we just get 2 Marit Lage tokens, or we're copying up on our other legendary broken stuff, which we have. It also does notably get rid of the legend rule, so if we do have Thespian Stage and Conduit of Worlds, we can just keep creating those Marit Lage tokens over and over again. Virtuous Gearhulk. This is basically in the deck because boom, it's an instant 8/8, and that's just going to be super solid for all of our Power Matters cards, right? We can't build a deck around Marit Lage and expect them to be there 100% of the time, so just having something that enters the battlefield as an instant big giant beater is going to be solid. He also has Trample, so anything that needs to deal combat damage to give us value will be awesome to, throw on this guy instead of our Marit Lage. Coma Cosmos Serpent. This guy's just a bomb, so I threw him in the deck. He will win games just because he's busted. Zopindril Hunger Dominus. Now this guy's in the deck because when we attack with our Marit Lage, boom, it's a 40/40 and that can just straight kill somebody now. So it turns our Marit Lage into instant lethal. Icebreaker Kraken, this can be backbreaking, especially for those combat-based decks, and then it is an 8/8, so it's not only useful, it does fit in the Power Matters theme. Green Sleeves Marrow Sorcerer, again, Powers Matters, very present, and then it just creates those 3/3 green badgers whenever we're dropping a land into play, and we do play a lot of lands. Pathbreaker Ibex, this will turn all of your creatures into 20/20s if Marit Lage is on the battlefield, so that's pretty busted. Eternal Witness and Celestine the Living Saint are just in the deck for some solid recursion. Moving on to ramp, we have a lot of it. We have Sculptor of Winter, Rime Tender, and Boreal Druid. Now notably, these are all snow creatures, so we can cast them from the top using our commander. Birds of Paradise, Noble Hierarch are also going to be some super solid mana dorks in the deck. Exploration, I like this card in the deck because if we do manage to get or tutor Dark Depths and Thespian Stage, I really want to play them both on one turn. That way our opponents don't have time to react to it, 3 Visits, Nature's Lure, and Farseek are just going to be solid early game rampers. Kodama's Reach and Cultivate are also going to be amazing in the deck for mana fixing and getting those basics. We do run an abnormal amount of basics because we really want a lot of our deck to be basics, because that's how you get those snow lands on top of your library and start casting them from the top of your library with your commander. Because notably, that does count as card draw in my book. If you're playing something from the top of your library, you effectively just drew a card. Soul Ring is going to be making an appearance also just because Soul Ring's busted. Moving on to card advantage, we have Fairy Mastermind. This guy's incredibly useful, and in a pinch, we can even use that ability to draw us a card, which will effectively draw us 2 cards. You just have to make sure you're activating it on your opponent's turn. Windfall, super solid. It can take you from 1 card to a full grip, so it's definitely going to be in the deck. Tatiova Benthic Druid and AC Tyrant of Gyre. Super solid. We're going to be drawing cards whenever we're playing land cards, and AC will even let us play 2 land cards. The Great Hinge. This is card advantage, life gain, and it even adds mana to our mana pool. Even without Marit Lage on the battlefield, our commander is a 5/5, so at most we're paying 4 mana for this, and it's still a busted card for 4 mana. Ledger Shredder. Now, this is not card advantage, but it does rifle us through our deck very quickly, getting us to our key pieces. Seagate Restoration. This can double as a land if we need it to early game, and late game it just draws us a lot of cards I mean, if this is the only card in your hand, that kind of sucks because it's a 7-mana cantrip, but hopefully that doesn't happen to you, right? And last but not least, we have our removal with Swords to Plowshare, Path to Exile, Arcane Denial, an offer you can't refuse, and then we have our board wipes with Time Wipe and Austere Command. That is going to do it for the deck tech, guys. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you think about this deck tech down in the comments below, and as always, I hope this helped you in your deck building endeavor.